All right. We missed a little important part, but that's okay. A lot of people who are in here know him already, so we're all good. So, okay, so we're going back to what we're doing. So, hello, Wade, and thank you again for agreeing to do this virtual author visit of the Westbury Memorial Public Library. And the page turner was so enjoyable to read. I love the family relationships portrayed in your books and the memorable characters. I suspect, as well, others here today who have read your book or plan on reading it soon would feel the same way. We will do this interview spoiler free to give the audience members who have not yet read the book an introduction to the book. And so, Wade, can you first please start telling us a little about the page turner, what brief like introduction what this book is about?
Yeah, and I actually, it's weird because now I have to kind of go back in my time machine because
I love that
I've
one.
got one coming out and I just turned in a Christmas novel. So I feel like one of those actors that has to like think about the role they were doing. Yeah, the page turner was, as I said on book tour, it's very Viola, but also very different. I wanted to really try to do something a little bit different with this novel. And it follows a young college graduate who has written a novel, something she should be very proud of. And yet in her family, it's unconscionable because she's written commercial women's fiction, romance, and her family owns a literary publisher in New York, and they kind of look down on anything that's too commercial or too feel good, which kind of mimics a lot of the way literary critics are these days and have always been. And her sister is a social media book critic, and she just, she's kind of licking her wounds after the loss of her grandmother and goes back to her cottage in South Haven, Michigan, just south of where I live in Saugatuck, to kind of find out exactly what she wants to do. And she ends up getting her novel published in the most unthinkable of ways and crosses path with one of the rudest, meanest authors in the history of the world, who's actually based on a real author or two that I know. So I wanted to write a book that really tried to pull back the curtain on the publishing industry today. Um, Readers are incredible. They see a book come out, see it on the shelf, they hear author interviews, and they get kind of, I think, a surface image of what it's like for a book to enter the world. And really, it's filled with beauty and horror and the beauty and hellscape that is publishing these days, and all that we kind of have to go through to get a book out into the world, and also fight for attention to these days. A certain few folks tend to get a lot of attention in the media for the books that they publish, deservedly so. But it's a fist fight among other authors to get their books recognized. So there's the beauty of writing a book that calls to you, and then there's the other flip side of trying to get that book published into the world and actually recognized by readers and the media. So that's really a book that I wanted to bring to life. And I love this book for many reasons. I love the characters. It's not a happy family like I've written about in the past. They go at it. They have secrets. Um, they love each other, but they're not demonstrative in the way that they show their love, which is the way many families are. Um, and I really wanted to show a young woman. This was called a romance, and it's really a romance of her falling in love with herself in many ways. There is no man that she falls in love with. There is no heroic, male that comes in that saves the day. It's really all reliant on her and her sister and kind of acknowledging their power in the world. And much of it was inspired by many things are, but by my grandmother, who, never finished high school, but was the smartest woman I've ever known in my life. But was overlooked in society because she had no voice, she had no power, she had no money. So I listened to my grandmother's voice, and that's what this book is about, is essentially finding the strength and power to listen to your own voice in this world, despite all the crud that comes, you know, kind of tidal waving in on us every day.
Very good. I was going to lead it into my next question, which you answered a little bit, but also, is that why you decided to honor your grandmother by choosing her pen name?
Yeah, you know, it's
Yeah. Mhm.
it is. I was just talking about this with a podcaster the other day, and you know, it's they'd asked if it was intentional, or the question that I always hate, if it was marketing related, that if
Mhm.
if I did it because I wanted entree into, women's fiction. And nothing could be further than the truth. You know, I'd written four memoirs before I wrote The Charm Bracelet, which was my first Viola Shipman novel. And as I've told, I think many of you know, I started writing that book on top of a cardboard box in the attic of my former family home when I was trying to move my dad out of it. You know, he had dementia. And I found all of my grandmother's heirlooms boxed in the attic. And I started writing that. And I really, one of the first things I wrote was by Viola Shipman, because her heirlooms inspired it, her stories inspired it. And I wanted a woman that had been overlooked her whole life to have her name heard. And, Michelle, like your library, I might not be around 50, 60 years from now. I hope I am, with a lovely walker and some face work.
Mhm.
But you know, those books will be in your library and people will still be saying my grandmother's name, which is something that never happened in her life. So that's the reason I did that.
Mhm. That's lovely. I love that. And you also maybe went a little bit into this, but maybe you can go a little further. What was the inspiration for this book?
It was leading back truly to voice again. You know, I turned 60. I'd signed a new 3-book contract, and I really took a step back and thought about what kind of the next set of books that I was writing, what I wanted to say to the world. You know, I'm going to go 60 to 63-ish with this contract. What are the stories that I want to tell? Because, I mean, I want to be doing this. I don't have to be doing this. So it's very important to me. And to me, it was all about reclaiming voice in this world when we are every day shell shocked by social media, or conflict with family, or the crap in the world. How do we reclaim that person that we once were? And that's really kind of what inspired this. And much so with my upcoming books too, my novels that are coming out, this coming year and the next year are are stories that I want to tell. Not stories that my publisher's telling me to write. They actually go against contract in many ways, and theme. And I'm really excited about that. That's what makes me excited to write again.
That is really good to hear. Readers who are new to you, although many of them here I think aren't new to you, but may not know that your books are about your beloved state of Michigan. Like, the different towns that feature in the book. And as we mentioned, you currently reside in Michigan. Can you please share why you chose the particular town that you did for this particular book, and also in general, how you pick the towns and villages that you use in your different novels?
Yeah, when I lived in Chicago, I lived in St. Louis, I lived in cities before we moved to Saugatuck, which is a resort town on the west side of Michigan, on Lake Michigan. Beautiful. It's artsy, adorable. Some of your folks have been here and seen it
Yeah.
in real life.
Very nice.
It really is. It's gorgeous. And when we moved here, I didn't know a hell of a lot about Michigan. You know, I just didn't. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I didn't have any cash. I signed a book contract. I had a really good job that I left. Um, I didn't have much cash in the bank. Every penny I had went to mortgage, food, electricity, and health insurance. And it was a big change for me. So I was scrambling in many ways. And so our vacations began going up and down the coast of Michigan, you know, going west, north. And if you've not been here, it really, and I'm not exaggerating, it is like you went to Greece. And now let me say this, in the summer and fall, It's like you went to Greece or the Amalfi Coast of Italy. Each little town up and down Michigan is unique, adorable, like New York too, there's in New Jersey, there's in Carolinas, there's so many beautiful different towns. So I started to fall in love with them because each was so different. And and I had not really chosen a setting for each book. And I've said this before. I love Mary Kay Andrews. I love Pat Conroy, Dorothea Benton Frank, people that really owned a setting and and stuck to it. They didn't really deviate from that. And I wanted to do that with Michigan. I hadn't read a lot of books about it. I thought I could make the setting a huge part of all of the stories, and I did that. I'm expanding a little bit. Palm Springs is the next where we winter is going to be the next primary location that I'm using, and it's just as beautiful and interesting and diverse. So, and then the town of South Haven that's in the page turner, um, literally is just south of Saugatuck, and it's the blueberry capital of the world. It's all things blueberry in the summer. If you know, I'm like Violet from, Willy Wonka by the time the summer's over, because we mainline blueberries nonstop. We have grapefruit here in Michigan, that follows the seasons. And South Haven's adorable. It's a little more beach towny, like old school beach town than Saugatuck is, and some of the towns in Michigan. And I love that kind of feel for it. They have old cottages right on the water. It just has a really unique feel to it, and um, I wanted Emma and the book to have a place where she felt safer than any place she's ever been before, which is kind of how I was growing up in my grandparents' log cabin. That place where um, you find yourself every time you're there. That's why I chose it.
I love hearing the background of that. So that's really good. And I've been, well, to your hometown, Saugatuck. I've been to South Haven and a few other towns. The Traverse City, wine
Oh yeah,
country.
yeah.
That's really nice. And another town of like name I can't think of right now, but a lot of great, cute little places on the west coast of Michigan. Uh, Now you have some really great characters in here. Well, first you have the main character, Emma, and I see she has a lot of growth during the book. So I just wonder if you could share a little more about her. What you wanted to portray of her and everything.
Yeah, she was, in many ways she was me. I hearken back to the way it was for me when I wrote my first book, which was a memoir called America's Boy. And it was about me growing up gay in the Missouri Ozarks with a family that loved me, had no idea what to do with me. And when I wrote America's Boy, I didn't show it to my family. I was petrified. I told them I was writing a book about them, but to actually share, you know, how my mother walked and talked, my dad's, eccentricities, which were numerous, all of the secrets of our family that, caused us such pain. It was very difficult. So her story was very parallel to me. How as a writer and as a person, do you find the strength to believe in your own story enough to let it go and let it, be birthed into the world? That's really what I wanted to accomplish with her. And she does go through a lot of growth in this novel, all kind of her own volition, with the support of her sister, often in times without the support of her sister and family. And a lot of that was kind of my own experience. And I loved a young woman simply believing in herself, which is what we all need to do and do more of again in this world.
Mhm. Definitely. And I wanted to say, even though like the grandmother isn't actually like physically present in the book, like you could feel her presence throughout the whole book. And I just want to say, yeah, I just loved like, the relationship that you portrayed that they had, Emma and her grandmother. So I just really wanted to comment on that.
Thank you. And I wrote a grandmother too that wasn't your typical grandma in many ways. No spoiler alerts here too, but she has a past and secrets as well that I I I found fascinating, that there was a woman that also wanted to protect her family, but hid a lot, um, you know, for the sake of protecting them. And so many of my elders were very similar. They didn't share the painful parts of their past because they didn't want their children and grandchildren to experience that. So, either they didn't talk about it, like grandfathers, fathers that have been in war,
Mhm.
or you would have to dig to kind of find out more about them because it didn't easily come out.
That's definitely true. Our audience and I love to hear book recommendations. Can you share some books that you read recently that you could recommend?
I can actually. I had a little when we were on Italy, I was reading. I have to say, one of my favorite books, and I think the best book that I've read, novel that I've read this year, is called Hazel Says No, um, which came out and didn't get a lot of attention, which I'm not surprised by, but baffles me as well. But it's about a family from New York City, very liberal, very smart. The dad's a professor at SUNY, um, way
Okay.
out. He drives, has to drive like crazy every single day. Um, the mother works in fashion, but low level. The daughter is brilliantly whip smart, sarcastic, loves going to school in the city, which they can barely afford. Her younger brother is wackadoodle crazy, a young actor, um, and they can't make it in New York. So the father takes a professorship in Maine, and they move to rural Maine. Supposedly a liberal arts school in a liberal town, it's nothing like that at all among the locals that are there. And so it's about the and I don't want to, I'm not giving this away, no spoiler alert, but it's about the families um, struggle with themselves, and also the town is kind of this liberal family kind of moves into a conservative area. But on the very first day of school, Hazel, who's a senior, is called into the principal's office, and she doesn't know what she's done. She thinks it's just a meeting, for a new student. And he says to her, I only pick one girl a year that I sleep with, and this year it's you.
Oh,
And it uncovers all of her. Does she say anything? Does she not? Did she hear it correctly? Did she not? Is he, I mean, what is going on? And it unravels the family. Let me say, it's hilarious. Um, it's kooky, and I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. Um, and then memoir wise, if you Jen Hatmaker wrote a memoir called Awake, which is, I think, pretty spectacular. And I think women, any age, any place, should read it about really what does it mean like if you play by the rules your whole life and you realize the rules are wrong, essentially. Those, it's like in bowling when you have to get it down a certain pathway and you get it down that pathway and you still don't get a strike. Everything still goes haywire. Why does that happen? What's wrong? Many times we think it's us, but it's not. It's the limits that are put on us. Great.
very
Those
good.
are my two
Mhm.
recommendations.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna leave this time for questions, and I already see we have one from Maria. So Maria, you can ask the first question.
Hi, Wade. Nice to
Hey,
see you again. Thanks
do.
for signing all my books when we saw you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Me too,
Um,
yeah.
um, I, Italy. I'm going to be going. The news to a lot of people here. Monday. I'll be there on
Oh,
Tuesday. I'm going to see my family. Would you be doing any international writing? I know you do Michigan and you're doing the Palm Beach, but in the future, like, your experiences. You've been to Greece, you've been to so many places internationally. Would you think about writing a book like
Wow.
your adventures,
That's a good
as maybe a
question.
memoir of all your trips, something like
That's a
that? Or
great, it's a great idea. Let me say, I always have a memoir in the works that is sitting there, that that I have ideas for. But I will say this, I'm putting proposals together for a new novel and pieces of travel. Let me just say, being in the airports, as you know, when you travel, it's fascinating. People watching, when you travel, sometimes I say it's not, it's the travel itself, the places, the sights you see, the places, but it's the experience of the people you meet when you travel that is actually the most beautiful, life-changing piece of traveling to me. So yes, one of the proposals I have has elements of that.
cool. All
Now,
right. That sounds
whether the hell they choose that or not, or go in
it'll
a
be a
different
comedy, I
direction.
gather, because it's crazy what happens at the airport, the
Yeah, right.
experience. So it's
Yeah,
like, uh,
have a
and
blast.
I will try. I'm going with my 91-year-old
Yeah.
dad and my 84-year-old and two wheelchairs. It's going to be more, I need a vacation after vacation. It's my
Oh
father
my
visiting
God.
his friend who hasn't seen in over 50 years. His friend's turning 92, who hasn't seen
Oh
in
my, that's lovely.
That is nice.
Greece and 7 days. It's going to be thinking positively. We all got our shots, RSV, COVID, flu. We all vaccinated, but
You
you
did
never
it too.
know.
We did too.
Yeah, yeah,
Have
it's going to be
that's
fun.
lovely.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much for all your books. I love you.
thank you. And I have to say, I travel with Gary, so I know what you're going through.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I hear what you said there.
Gary's awesome. Thank you, Wade.
That's
I'll let
funny.
Crawford go next. Thank you.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward
Have
to reading
fun.
your book, my Friends. I know the change, the
Oh yeah.
title. Yeah, I'm seeing that soon. And you said it comes out in, yeah, that's what Friends are for.
But the
They
Friends
March
changed the
4
3rd.
title.
coming out in March. Okay.
Net
Yep.
Galley in a week, right? I read
Yeah,
this book in
NetGalley and
April.
ARCs are coming out too.
That's
Cool.
exciting.
Wonderful. Thank you again. Love you.
You too.
Thank you. And Barbara, you can ask your question now.
Okay, well, first of all, because I'm going to piggyback on Maria made me think of one of my questions that I have. But first of all, thanks for those book recommendations. I did read Awake, an arc of it a while ago, because I always heard you talk about Jen Hatmaker and all that.
Yeah.
I would tell anybody to read it. Like, it's on my favorite shelf at the bookstore because it was just memoirs are hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not easy reads, and hers is not an easy read. It's very, touching but
Yeah.
you're right. Like, you can just learn so much from that no matter what situation you're in.
Yeah.
So, really good. But okay, so Maria asking you about places and stuff like that. So you talked about um pitching a book. Right now, we know that's what friends are for. You're working on a Christmas novel. So, how do you pitch, like, when you're working on all these things? You just have an idea of another one and you pitch that now for the next year or something? Like, I'm just curious about how that works.
Yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
like book contract wise, let's say you get a 3 book contract. Part of the contract from the very beginning, like when you sign, is the publisher already starts to lay in, and the gazillions of books that you receive and how they come out every Tuesday and all year long. It's put in there truly when the pub date is going to be. They're hoping it to be. When the manuscript is due for book 1, 2, and 3, and before that, when the proposal is due. So, they kind of stair step all of those throughout. So, I'm super type A and anal, so I always have that in front of me. And sometimes it takes my editor weeks to go through my proposals, sometimes a couple of months because she'll share it with the team or sales or marketing. And I'm a big pitcher, which I think drives my editor and my agent just absolutely, pardon my language, batshit crazy. So I will theme pitches like, it could be very different than what I'm writing right now, but I love. Um, and be very in depth. I mean, the pitches are usually a page each. or more. Not only what the book's going to be about, how it's going to unfold, and who the characters are. So, and I could do 10, 10, because that's my mind. And most, I think many authors will only do one or two.
10.
Wow.
But some continue on. Some the next year I'll look back and go, that was the stupidest idea I've ever pitched in my life. Why didn't they just burn the contract? So I do. So it's right now I'm trying very hard to do ideas that are calling to me, and they're very different than what I've been writing before. I'm excited.
Wow.
Sounds very intriguing. Definitely.
Thank you. Well, we're looking
Excited about
forward to
that.
it.
Yeah.
March 3rd.
March
Yes.
3rd.
March 3rd. Okay. I'll make a mental note of that. Because I'm definitely gonna pre-order that. Uh, okay, so want to thank Wade for coming to talk to us tonight online, and I hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you again, Wade, and it was good to
Thank
see you
you.
again.
It's good to see familiar faces, and yeah, I'm sure I'll be on tour coming around to see everybody. We're working on that now, and I hope you love my new one coming out. That's what friends are for. It's great quotes. If you love the Golden Girls, inspired by that, Jodi Picoult gave me the cover quote. Grant Ginder just gave me a wonderful endorsement. We just went to the Heartland Indie Book Festival, which is all the Midwest and Great Lakes booksellers. And I did the movable feast where I went table to table pitching the book, and I got a great reception. So I'm super excited.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I saw the photos of that. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just to let people here know, our next virtual author visit will be of Allison Richmond, Monday, December 7th, discussing her latest book, The Missing Pages. So again, everyone, thanks for attending and have a good night. Bye, everyone.
Friday night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.